Hello everyone, and welcome to your video which will introduce you to the idea of functions. So the first question that you might have is, what is a function? Well, a function shows a relationship between two variables. It always sounds more complicated when I try to write it out in actual English, but here's an example for you. Y equals x plus 3. Y equals x plus 3. This is a function. If you know y, you can calculate x. If you know x, you can calculate y. In fact, we've been doing this for a long time now through the completion of xy charts, right? So if I said that x is 0, what is y? Well, y would have to be 3. 0 plus 3 is 3. If I said that x is 1, what is y? Well, y has to be 4. If I said that x is 5, what is y? Y is 8. See that? That's all we're doing. And we can even make ourselves a graph of this equation. Let me see. If x is 0, y is 3. If x is 1, y is 4. If x is 5, y is 8. So our graph looks like that. Right? So this is y equals x plus 3. What we're going to do now is we're going to learn a new way to write this. We're going to write it like this. This is the same thing as this, just written in a new way. This right here is the name of the function. So the name of our function is f, name of function. And we would read this f, I'll write it properly, f of x. F of x. That's how you would say that. So here you say y equals x plus 3. Here you say f of x equals x plus 3. You can simply think of this f of x as being your substitute for y, and that's good. Now, the question that I am sure you have is, why do I have to learn how to write this a whole new way? Why can't I just keep using my y equals x plus 3 in my beautiful slope-intercept format? Why are you torturing me like this? Well, okay, I'll give you a couple of answers. First of all, it makes it easier when I'm asking you questions. For instance, looking at this function right here, if I asked you, what is y when x is 24? What is y when x is 24? See how I had to write that whole sentence out? That was terrible. Go ahead, try to put it in some sort of mathematical, shortening. You don't know how. Aha! But now you do. F of 24 equals what? That is this whole sentence here shortened. F of 24 is what? So this allows us to ask questions about this relationship in a more efficient manner. Okay? Also, wait, there's another reason. Let's pretend like I have a graph. Oh, I do have a graph. I don't even have to pretend anymore. Okay, and let's draw some lines on this graph. Let's say that I have one line, just like this one up here, that goes like this. Right? Instead of calling this y, this line, y equals x plus 3, I can just call it f of x. And then I can use this same chart and I can put another line and I can call this g of x. So I know that it's a different function. In other words, a different line. And I can do another one, and I can call that h of x. And then when I do calculations with these, it becomes easier to refer to each line because I don't have to write out the whole formula for the line. I can just say f of x, g of x, or h of x. So it makes life a little bit easier. Now, there's a lot more to functions, but we're keeping it easy here at the beginning. We're just kind of getting used to this. So you can, if you see f of x or g of x or h of x, you can just think of it as your y value. As your y value. Okay? So let me give you a typical problem. If I said that f of x equals 4x plus 2, that would be just like saying y equals 4x plus 2, right? Don't be intimidated. F of x equals 4x plus 2. Then I can ask you to evaluate f of 5. So all you would do in this situation is whenever you see an x, you would stick a 5 in. So it would be 4 times 5 plus 2. We do order of operations, right? So we do our multiplication first. So f of 5 equals 22. What if I asked you f of 10? What would that be? Well, I'd stick a 10 in here. So 4 times 10 is 40 plus 2, so that would be 42. What if I did f of negative 8? F of negative 8, that would be negative 32 plus 2, so negative 30, right? These are typical problems. This is your function. This is asking you to evaluate the function at a specific point. In other words, calculate the y value for that x, right? If x is 5, what is y? Let's do another couple examples. Let's do, what if I told you this? I told you v of x equals negative 1 over x. Okay. And let's say that I want you to evaluate v of 2. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this, but instead of the x, I'm going to stick in the 2. So negative 1/2 is my answer there. Now, of course, I could make it harder. I could do v of negative 9. What is that? Well, I write the same thing, negative 1 over, and then instead of x, I write a negative 9. Negative times a negative equals a positive, so I get 1/9 as the answer. Positive, right? What if I said v of 0? What would that be? Well, that would be negative 1 over 0. Can never divide by 0, so this would be undefined. So that's all there is to it. You just take your x and you stick it in your function formula, and you are good to go. Okay, one last thing before I leave you, and that is I want to point out that when you see this terminology, this means function. It does not mean multiplication. Usually when we have two letters right next to each other and we have some parentheses involved, we are thinking multiplication. This has absolutely nothing to do with multiplication. Now, you're saying to yourself, but it looks like multiplication. Yeah, but it's not. Just like in English, you can have one word mean two different things. In math, you can have one type of writing mean two different things. You need to consider the context. If we're talking about functions, you need to be thinking function. If we're talking about simple arithmetic, then you could be thinking multiplication. Consider the context. Just like the word, if I asked you, do you have a pen? Right? What am I talking about? Am I talking about a writing instrument? Or am I talking about a holding area for pigs? Well, you would consider the context. If the person that you're talking to is a teacher, they probably mean writing instrument. If you're talking to a farmer or a veterinarian, then they might very well mean a holding area for pigs. You have to think about the context so that you know what's going on. Same thing here. When you see this terminology, they're talking about function, not multiplication. Be wise.